Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Ortiz, and I'm your host here at the My Camp podcast. You are joining me live today here in the Girls HC, and I'm really excited to introduce my new camp bestie, Erica Jameson from Jameson Ranch Camp, all the way out west in the Sierras in California. So welcome, Erica.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Girls HC. Thanks for joining me today. Now, everybody, especially as adults, has a camp origin story, right? A story how
Yeah.
they all got to camp. They're all very interesting. So yours is really good. So
Yeah, it's not too bad. Back in 1934, my grandfather was a young, struggling student, and he had just graduated from Berkeley, and his sister was working as a school teacher on Tejon Pass, which is for those people from California or who are familiar with I-5. It's between like Northern California and Los Angeles. So it's the really incredibly rocky, like mountain part that gets a lot of snow, and people are like, oh, I-5 is closed. So anyway, Tejon Ranch. And they needed some kids for the school up there because that's where my great aunt was teaching. And my grandfather had this idea that in order to get kids, maybe he should petition the county. And so he did. He petitioned the county, and the county was like, yeah, great. You want kids for this school. We're going to give you the ones that would have gone to jail if they weren't with you. And so he had these kids, and they took them and made them live at the school there at Fort Tejon. And they went to school. And then in the afternoons after school, they did homework together. And then there were useful skills. So those might be trapping. They would run trap lines. This is back when like the fur thing was not as well, PETA didn't really exist. So there was that. So they ran trap lines, and he taught them to track animals and hunt, and they would go supplement their, food with deer and other game. And these kids were pretty hardcore. He told me a story once about they went on a deer hunt, and one of them stole his car and then made an escape to like Northern California. So it was a really big deal. But anyway,
these were bad boys.
right. Oh yeah. These were like the original bad boys. I think like outsider style, but a little
Right.
harder.
I'm like the
Um,
original Outward Bound program right here.
exactly.
Whoa.
So, and what that deer story, the thing that made me laugh when he told it, because he was like, well, we hunted this deer, and we shot it, and then we had to track it for miles and miles, and I sent this kid back to get the car, and then he stole the car, and he's like, and then I had to carry the deer all the way home. And I was like, that's the one thing you're like, is focused on, not like this miraculous escape from this person. Like, come on. But anyway, yeah. So eventually his sister stopped teaching school. He moved the camp to the Greenhorn Mountains, which is north and east of where he was. And then he met this campfire girl director up there who turned into be my grandmother. And so she was running the Campfire Girls Camp. She was from San Diego. I love her history, and we can get into that later. But so she was a campfire girl and doing the thing up there. And he met her and thought, well, what a strong, capable woman. And so eventually they got married. And once they did, they still had that winter program, but they were thinking, well, we should probably do summer camp because Campfire Girls is, really all about the summer for the most part. So they then turned the program into a summer program plus the winter one. And then after they had 3 kids, they were like, you know what? Perhaps we should just switch to summers. It's a little easier. So that's when my grandfather bought the property, and then they transitioned into the summer camp that they ran in that space from 1942 until 1979. And so my parents, my dad was born on the ranch, grew up there with his sister and brother, and did the whole camp thing. And then he went away to college, and in a production of Oklahoma met my mother. They like to say that, he was the tallest man, she was the shortest woman. Unfortunately, they were dancing partners, and the director kept saying, "We're going to find someone else, but for your partner," but they never did. So anyway, he married her, and she married him back, and they moved to the ranch in 79, or excuse me, in 74, and took over the business in 1979. And so they raised 5 kids on the ranch, and in 2009 they sold the business to me, and we started the transition. And so I'm the oldest of their 5 children. So yeah, that's our whole origin story. It gets pretty intense when you start telling stories like that.
So are all of your siblings involved in the camp, or are you the only one that's involved?
So one of my sisters and her husband run sort of our sister program, and they do retreats and family camp. My sister is a professional chef. Like, she is incredible. And so one of the ways to sort of explore that chef passion and merge that with camp is to be able to serve these families some like amazing food. So she and my brother-in-law do that portion. And when the business was sold, we were doing 5 sessions, and now we do 4. And those last 2 weeks are retained for family camp, so it works really well.
Wow. I mean, like, camping is in your genes. Like, your grandmother and your grandfather both
Yeah.
camping. Like, whoa.
Right.
You, so they're really lucky that out of their 5 kids that want to. I'm sure that
Yeah.
it can be such a challenge. And I've interviewed and talked to a lot of camps, and some of them have been around for a very long time, and none of them have been within the same family, I feel like.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I think that
Well, my parents mixed it up a bit by adopting 5 kids, so that probably helps a bit.
wow. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Jameson Ranch Camp and your program. You said you had 4 sessions. So tell me
Yeah.
about your sessions.
Okay, so we have 2-week sessions. Kids come on a Sunday and leave 2 Saturdays after that. And basically, our whole program idea is surrounded by the idea, that we bring kids onto a working ranch. And so we are as self-sustainable as possible. We run some cattle, and we have a large garden, and we try and produce a lot of our own food. And so the idea is, all right, kids, come see where food comes from. So come be out in this tech-free wilderness where cell phone service doesn't reach. And we sleep outside on sleeping porches, so like they can see the stars every night. They are pretty remote up in the wilderness, and we have 500 acres that borders the Sequoia National Forest. So we've got a lot of space. So the basic premise is really come join this positive community, get away from the chaos, and figure out who you are. And to that end, we do all kinds of different outside activities. A lot of them are, like non-motorized. Well, all of them are non-motorized. So mountain biking, mountain boarding, archery, riflery, horseback riding. We built a lake, and so now we have like water sports and that kind of thing. And the cool thing about our space is that when it started, it was like you work all morning and you play all afternoon. We play a little harder now and a little bit more, but everything on the ranch was built by the kids, the staff, and my family. And so whether it's the bricks that went into our main ranch house, or it's the pool, or the lake, or the outdoor oven, all of that, sleeping areas included, like all of those things were built during the summer with kids as a project. So it's really cool to be able to have people come back or visit and say like, oh, I did that, and so that's a great part of our program.
It really engages your campers and your staff and makes more of that connection to the camp, not just through the memories and the relationships that they're building, but the actual fruits of their labor, right?
Oh, yeah.
So special that is. So how many campers can you see at one session?
85.
Okay. Awesome. So you
Yes.
have 4 sessions, 2 weeks. Now
Mhm.
I've noticed, so I work at a sleepaway camp on the East Coast. I
Okay.
definitely think there's, conversations between East Coast, West
Oh
Coast,
yeah.
and like the differences even in camp culture. So
Mhm.
you do 2 week sessions, like my camp is the 7 week. Do you see a difference in the camp culture between like the East and the West? What's your take on that?
Well, if I was being totally honest, I would say that you get wet, hot American summer on the East Coast.
Okay. Oh, that's
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
or maybe that's Michigan. I'm not sure. It's hard for me to know. But I think that the camps on the West Coast would possibly terrify camp directors on the East Coast, um, just because there is a lot of, well, we don't have a lawn. And like I feel like East Coast camps, like I'm looking behind you, you got the girls' headquarters there. And
Yeah.
like your lawn's gorgeous. Like, don't get me wrong, I've got some lawn envy here, which is weird. But at the same time, like everything is a hill. So as I tell our staff and our kids, like everything is uphill. Lunch is uphill, your sleeping area is uphill. Like, yeah, you're gonna go down a hill at some point, but like everything's uphill. And so I feel like a lot of times with West Coast camps, one, everything is uphill, and secondly, it's a little more, I think there's a Western style laid back component that might be missing from East Coast camps. I feel like East Coast camps are really highly organized, and I'm not saying we're not highly organized, but at the same time, it is a lot of like supervised, unsupervision, and controlled chaos. And kids are running around and whatever they are interested in doing in those particular moments between things. And I just stand in one spot and sort of watch the action and then wait with a band-aid. I don't always feel like East Coast camps are down with that. It sometimes feels like you guys are like, okay, we need to keep you from having a band-aid. And I'm like, I've got 9, like right here. If you need to bleed, it's okay.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So talk me through a typical day, and not that any day is typical, every day is
Sure.
off the charts,
Absolutely.
but what's a day like at JRC, Jameson Ranch Camp?
Well, I think we get up pretty early. We get to sleep in now. Like I moved our start times from 6:45 to 7. So I feel pretty good
Whoa,
about
that is
that.
early.
Yeah. So we get up at 6:45. We start our early morning chores, which are basically before breakfast chores, at 7. And so every kid has a job.
Love.
So basically, whether it's about 20-30 minutes of something every day, and there's a whole round of them that happen before breakfast. So whether they're feeding the cows or they're collecting eggs, or they're working in the garden, or they're setting the tables, like there's a whole crew of kids and a staff person running around doing all of these things first off in the morning. Then we go back to our bunks, clean them up for inspection, come down, and the Pony Express runs the mail in. It is a literal horse. Somebody rides, galloping through the yard, checks the mail at everybody, and then runs off. So then we do mail call, sing a couple of songs.
Oh,
We
wait.
sing like mad.
Do you
So
have do you have like a song that goes with the mail?
we don't have a song. It's Reveille that goes with the mail, I think.
Yeah. Okay,
Da,
but do
da,
you
da,
sing
da, da,
songs?
da, 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 da. And then the songs, we start with "Oh What a Beautiful Morning" from the play Oklahoma.
It's a song in my camp too, so I feel
There you
you.
go,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
And then like going through that, and my dad plays a 12 string, so he's kind of central to all of this. So we sing typically somewhere between like 3 and 6 times a day, depending.
Whoa, I
We
love
love
that.
singing. Yeah.
How
So
how involved is your dad still in the camp? You said he's there as the guitar. So what is he
yeah,
like? Is he
he's
like
there with the guitar, and then he does a lot of our work projects, like most of them. So he's out cutting wood, he's
okay,
out,
all right.
driving the Bobcat. Occasionally he'll teach a kid to drive the Bobcat, that kind of stuff. They really like it. It's like
Oh,
slalom through like some poles. Or it's actually cones, because if it was poles, they'd probably run him over. And if you run over a cone, it's not a big deal. But he's there every day. He enjoys singing. He typically like commits, because he's semi-retired. So usually I'm like, hey, what are you down for today? And he's like, oh, well, I'll do this, this, and this. But it's really awesome. He always walks by and goes, do you need me for anything? I'm like, nope, go take a nap. And he's like, all right, I'm on it. So, but there, he and my mom both are very involved. But back to the day, we
Okay.
sing some songs, go into breakfast, after breakfast, do some cleanup, and then we have what are called announcements. And I think most camps do this. You get up in front of kids and you say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And in our space, after all of those happen, kids go boom, and they break and they scatter to wherever it is they're going to go. And so we count them, say, oh, there's 12 kids going to the pool, there's 15 kids going to, kayaking, and then disperse our staff. And then everybody goes off until lunchtime. Lunchtime, we come back, have lunch, take a rest, do another round of announcements and programs, come back. Every other day there are showers. I feel like East Coast camps, y'all take showers every day.
We do.
And our showers are monitored. So it's like you get so much hot water, which is why everyone gets a hot shower, and that's nice. And then dinner, we do some after dinner activities, which are like cardboard box sliding or sock wrestling or, bananagrams, that kind of thing. And then we meet up for our evening sing. Everybody heads off to bed after that. Somebody goes around and sings to the sleeping areas, and then the day is over.
Someone like walks through and the sings, like who does that?
Either my dad or my assistant director, Caitlin.
So what's the nighttime song? Erica, what do you sing?
Oh,
The lullaby.
You're just trying to get me to sing.
Oh,
We
yes.
sing probably
yes.
about 35 to 40 songs on rotation. And it
What's
depends on who's singing. So
what's your fave? What will put you to bed at night?
I'm partial to All the Pretty Horses, honestly. You know that one? The hush.
Go ahead.
Don't you cry, go to sleepy little baby. When you wake, you shall have all the pretty little.
I feel like I sang that in chorus in high school or something, right? Yes, awesome. Now, with the 2-week sessions, do you have kids that stay for multiple sessions? Like they just get enough and they want to stay? Do you have any that stay the 8 weeks?
Occasionally. Most kids, their summers are so packed right now that 8 weeks is tough. But at least for California kids and kids on the West Coast. East Coast kids, I feel like they expect to go to camp for 8 weeks. So there's that. But yeah, we get kids mostly for 2 and 4 sessions. And then some will stay for 6, or rather 6 weeks. And that's good.
You know, what's nice about the 2-week session is as the kids get older and their summers do become more packed, it allows them to still have camp. They don't have to make a choice between, baseball, travel baseball, and camp. They can have the best of both worlds. Do you find that campers will return with the same kids and all go to the same session? Do you have that kind of sense of community within the 2 weeks?
Deal, So everyone calls and like, we need this session. You're like, it's full. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just yesterday, and the mom was like, no, and you're like, I don't know if she can get in. It's really tough. And I think she cannot. She's 12th on the wait list. Which isn't a wait list, but like when you only take 85 kids, very few people drop out.
Right. And I'm thinking, and honestly, what a great problem to have. It's February 17th and you have a wait list, right? Thank you. Oh, what a great problem.
I feel pretty fortunate to be able to do this and, be fairly successful at it. A lot of that has to do with the people that came before me.
And I think in going back to even, being at this camp since 1934 has been, in the same family, I think is a really true testament to not only the strength and the quality of the program that you're providing, but it has a lot to say for the quality of the leadership, the family, the morale, like to be able to have a program that old, you have to, you got to be doing something right. So really kudos to you. Do you find so I know you're probably still hiring for staff, you're on a wait list for campers, but how much of your staff is returning campers?
It kind of depends. Oh, returning campers.
Like
So,
the campers that you have, because let me tell you, nobody works harder or knows camp better than
mhm.
a camper who has become a counselor. Like,
Yeah, that's a that is a very true statement. Although what we tell campers as they're transitioning is that you have a very specific idea about what camp is, and I have a very specific idea about what camp is. And in a battle of philosophical differences, my camp idea is going to win. So let me be really specific about what I think camp is.
right, right. I mean,
Yeah, it matters. I mean, I try to be really specific about camp. I mean, we all are, right? If you're a camp director, you're oddly specific about very certain things. But I think that what we do for our staff is explain that camp is imaginary. Like camp exists. It 100% exists, right? But it only exists because we make it. And it only works when we all make the same thing, right? So it's kind of like that campus cookies thing. And a lot of people do that during staff training. We're like, I'm going to put in peanut butter and I'm going to put in chocolate chips. And then you have like some whack job that puts in like tarragon. And you're like, these are horrible cookies, right? And so it only really works when everybody does the same thing and focuses on building something in the same way. And what we've noticed about Gen Z is that they want to make decisions, but there's a lot of decisions that they're concerned about making the wrong one. And so if you give them the structure, like, okay, these are the five philosophical underpinnings of camp. If you run those through your mind when you make a decision and you go along, and as long as you're true to those, like we call them pillars, if you will, pillars, then you're never going to make a bad decision.
so
You're
what are those five philosophical? I'm taking notes,
right.
Erica.
Absolutely. So the first one is unconditional love. We love our campers, like for real, but we love them so much we're totally willing to correct their negative behavior if that's necessary. And so, you provide them, the structure by saying, these are my expectations. Please meet the expectations. And if not, you just go outside the responsibility box, because responsibility is kind of like a box, and you're like, come back, right? And so you pull them back in, and you do that a couple of times, and then if they're still unwilling to cooperate, then you're like, okay, there's a consequence for this. Behavior comes with consequences and rewards, right? So that's part of what, doing what's best for kids in their best interests, right? So secondly, we think that the celebration of each individual is really important. In the 1990s, that idea of tolerance got really popular. And when you really look at the concepts of tolerance, I sort of think of it as I put up with this kind of attitude, and I don't want to put up with it. I want to celebrate kids, and I want them to feel like they're being seen where they are and not where they feel they have to be. And so that celebration of individuals really allows us to hire a highly diverse group of people who can see kids and who can provide a mentor that resonates with them. So that's that second one. Thirdly, we think that teaching kids about risks is really important. One of the things that is really popular is this concept of failure, and camps really know that, like, look, failure is part of life. I mean, all of us know that failure is part of life, but I think camp is a really good place for kids to learn how to fail in a positive way. And so by providing a team of people around beside a group of kids going, hey, you can totally do this, but maybe not right now. I don't even know if you can do it next week. It's possible that in 3 years you'll have this skill. And that's okay, because that's just you working towards something that you want. And so by teaching kids like that risks are going to get you something, you don't have to quit if you're not good. I think it's like 10% of the population is good at any one specific thing the minute they pick it up, right? Well, that leaves the rest of the 90% of us sort of SOL, right? So that means that we got to work hard. So if you can then convey that to kids, that's positive. And then along with that is just the concept of teaching kids what a good risk versus what a bad risk is. As you know, we've got ACA standards. We do all these things that, we set things up so that kids have the best possible chance of success, right? and the best possible chance of staying alive during that success.
Mhm.
So, good risk versus bad risk. We have, rock climbing equipment, helmets, ropes. That is a child with a tarp and a piece of string. Stay away from that one, right? So, that kind of thing. Then we think that simplicity is really important, just being really present where you are and believing that this moment is where you're supposed to be right this second. So you should pay attention to it because there's something here. And then we think that creativity is really important because camp has continued to evolve over the years that it's been around. And that is the only thing that allows us to remain relevant. So those are our philosophies. And so I hit on those pretty hard during the course of our orientation week so that way our counselors know what to do.
Wow, I took notes. Like, I'm like, where do I go on from that? The 5 philosophical underpinnings or pillars of Jameson Ranch Camp. Guys, you heard it here, folks. Unconditional love, celebration, risks, learning about risks, simplicity, and creativity. I mean, when you talk about the evolution of camp, like even you think about your camp, you started off as like a program for troubled teens in the wintertime, right? It was in the wintertime and then became more of the camp that we know today. So you mentioned earlier that you have your four sessions, your 8 weeks of camp, and then how your camp has also evolved in creating like family experiences and then like a retreat. So how else do you see Jameson Ranch Camp evolving like in the next 10-20 years?
Well, I think one of the things that we are doing right now is working on that ranch aspect. We have, we've done a number of different things with the ranch, and the whole program itself was based on the concept that we were going to provide, all of the food for campers on the ranch. So for those those first years of camp, we butchered our own beef. We picked corn from the garden, we harvested the vegetables and then, the kids ate that and they all helped, right? So the USDA has a different idea about what you can do with home processed beef. So we've had to stop that. But we are returning to that concept of, all right, we are a sustainable cattle ranch. We are a sustainable farm. Like we do feed ourselves. So I think in the next probably 5-10 years, you'll see that becoming more of a focus. And I don't mean like in the like cowboy be western kind of way, because we think our kids, if they want to do that, that's fine. If they don't want to do that either, that's fine too. But just helping people understand where that farm lifestyle comes from and where your food comes from, and helping with the realization that it takes this much water to grow corn. It takes this much management to grow beef. It takes this much, work to make sure that the raccoons don't get all your corn or whatever it is. And that, we all say the struggle is real, right? Well, this is a different kind of struggle, but it's for your food. And as we grow more and more urban, as I think there are in the world now more people living in urban areas than in farming areas. I mean, worldwide, not just the US. So like as we become more urban, the disconnect is going to be greater. And so if we can help bridge that disconnect, I think that will be a really good service.
I mean, there's such a power in food, right? And you think about the power that these kids feel in like helping to create it. And then the power that even just is like sitting and breaking bread with your bunkmates or your division or whoever for 3 meals a day. Like it's powerful. You're building connections, like the relationships when they're working in the field to just sitting and enjoying and eating all that corn for the corn eating
oh my gosh, yes.
right?
Oh my gosh, the corn eating contest is real. Although I have to say, like, I didn't think about the hypoglycemic ramifications of corn eating contests until someone ate 23 ears of corn in a night. And I was like, we can't. Oh, that was totally a record. I was like, no, we're not doing this again. I'm not sending you into like some sort of blood sugar coma and then calling your parents. What happened? He ate 23 ears of corn, and I thought that was fine.
As a
Like,
parent of three
right?
children, I can just imagine like what that looks like on the back end, right? 23 years apart. Oh my God. But as also, I can even just imagine there is nothing. I mean, we're big corn eaters. We buy it at the grocery store, but this like fresh
Oh,
homegrown corn
yes.
off the stalk, I can't
Yeah.
even.
It's incredible. I mean, you barely even blanch it. You just make it warm in the boiling water and bam, serve it. It's so good.
Butter, salt,
Nope, please.
or just nothing.
Yeah, that's not even negotiable. And it has to be real butter.
Okay. Do you make your own butter?
We started last year. One of my counselors asked for an old fashioned butter churn. So we got her one and she promptly made butter. So we're all over it. My grandpa used to make butter, but it was dirty butter that he would oil his saddles with. So that's what I grew up with.
I used to teach and I taught first grade, and we would make butter in baby food jars for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
And it was so good. So, oh
I
my
bet.
God. So, like, food is such a big part of camp. What are some of the favorite meals? Is your sister involved in like the menu planning? Is she the camp
Yeah,
chef?
she's been really amazing at planning all of our meals and giving us some just incredible food. She used to cook for us, and it was just incredible. Oh my gosh, we were fed so well. But favorite foods, our campers really like taco towers. So, it's basically like taco salad with chips and meat and everything like that. So they really like those. They're pretty excited about the Amish rolls, and we send that. We send.
Amish roll. What's an
Oh,
Amish roll?
it's a really fluffy like white bread roll.
Um,
We sent the recipe out for Thanksgiving so people could make them, and they sent videos back. It was pretty cool.
Oh, maybe we could post that recipe on our Happy Camper Live
Yeah,
website, because I'm thinking like bread with your butter.
right,
Man, oh,
right. We're in
food
the,
alone.
it's winter time, so like all I'm thinking about is like toast and bread and that
Right.
kind of stuff.
Oh,
Nanaimo bars, those are a huge hit.
what's
Those are
that?
from so we thought this was a proprietary family recipe. It's not. We had a cook that like convinced us that it was from her family and she would never give anyone the recipe. I found it online.
Okay.
So small untruths there. But they are like this chocolate custard nut coconut decadent like sheet cookie. It's not, I don't know if it's a cookie or a bar, but it's like a layer of like nuts and chocolate crumbs and coconut, and then there's like custard, and then there's like this layer of chocolate ganache. I mean, you'll
Ganache. You were
oh
gonna say
yeah,
ganache.
I
You
did, I
have
did.
ganache at camp.
Yeah.
Oh man, that it's funny. I interviewed another camp from California that has like no running water, no electricity in the bunk, but they're avocado toast. So it's like, how much can you expect these California West Coast camps
Right.
to rough it? Do you have running water and electricity on your sleeping porches?
We have running water. Absolutely. It's
Okay, okay.
hard to imagine camp without that, but no, there's no electricity to the bunks at all.
Ooh, okay.
We have electricity in our main camp building and in that area where we meet to sing every day. But that's it. Like campers don't need electricity.
No, the stars in the sky must give you the
Exactly.
most incredible light
Oh,
shows, shooting stars. Oh, that is just so amazing.
yeah.
So, Erica, if someone wanted to find out more about JRC, Jameson Ranch Camp, where can they find more info?
We've got a website, like most people at this point in
Right?
time. It's jamesonranchcamps.com. But if you really want to get a good feel of it, check out our Instagram.
Okay.
We do a really good job, I think, of that particular social media outlet. But people have to be warned. Like parents need to know we post one photo a day.
Okay.
One. And
Okay.
so like they're not gonna see their kid all the time. Like mostly because camp is a place of first, right? And so we're getting kids out of these comfort zones and we're letting them do things. And there's a huge amount of independence in being able to narrate your own story when you get home. And so if I post a photo of a kid with a sunburn, I'm going to get a call from the mom. Why is my child sunburned? Instead of, I went to camp, I got sunburned, I got over it. They gave me aloe. They did all of these things, and it becomes this really cool. It can become this really cool story. I'm not trying to hide sunburns from anybody. Like I'm not out there to be like, oh, you can't see what's happening. But it does add a really, I think, a much more positive dynamic when you let kids be kids without having to fear or be concerned or even have the concept that their parents are going to be watching them. Because at this point, like, your parents are everywhere, right? You're checking on your child because you're tracking them on the app. You know exactly where they are all the time. And so this is an exercise in trust that works for both parents and kids. Kids trust us to take good care of them, and parents trust us to take good care of them. And if we have that bond for real, which is what I try really hard to cultivate with the parents, that we have, like, then you and I and the kids can do almost anything, because there is that just bottom and baseline that I will do the right thing by your family every time, and your child is going to come out the better for it. So I don't know. I think that works really well.
I love that. And as a camp photographer, I've done quite a few summers doing that job, but you see it, you kids that all say, oh, I need to be in a picture today, or my parents want to see me in pictures. And so it's a distraction really from, I feel like, than what although I will tell you, I create my best work at camp, though, the beauty and the kids and the classic of it. Oh, I could just go through rabbit holes and look at camp pictures all day long.
I hear that for sure.
Such a magic place. And I'm sure really looking for the one picture a day from Jameson Ranch Camp, I'm sure it looks just as classic as it did in 1935, right? Like, it's timeless. Your camp and your ranch is timeless. So Erica, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to talk to you and learn about your camp. Guys, please check out their Instagram. I'm going to go stalk you a little bit more on there myself. But really, guys, thanks for joining me today. If you love camp and want to hear about all these amazing camps all across the country and even throughout the world, please check us out where you listen to podcasts on Apple Music, Spotify. We've got a Happy Camper Live has an amazing YouTube channel, so check us out there. And I'll see you again here in the Girls HC next time. I'll say the s'more for you. Take a moment to shine.